What if I told you that your kindness could destroy you? That every good deed you do, without calculation, could cost you your power, your peace, even your life? Tonight we uncover the dark truth, the shocking cost of goodness, and how to protect yourself before it's too late. In every age I have watched the same tragedy unfold. The kind fall first, the honest are deceived, the gentle are devoured by wolves, dressed in fine robes of righteousness. They believe that goodness will save them. But my dear listener, goodness without strategy is the surest path to ruin. There once lived a young ruler whose heart burned with the desire to be loved by his people. He believed that goodness was the highest form of power, that mercy would win loyalty, and that virtue would protect him from deceit. His face was unmarked by cruelty, his words soft, his eyes filled with the glow of innocence. When his counselors whispered of betrayal, he smiled and said, "I shall answer evil with kindness. The world will see that goodness conquers all." But I, Niccolò Machiavelli, have watched too many kings fall to the same illusion, the illusion of virtue. It is the most seductive lie a man can believe, and the most dangerous to his throne. For goodness, my dear listener, does not exist in the realm of power, as it does in the hearts of dreamers. Power does not bow before purity, it bends only to control. The young king gave mercy to his enemies, believing it would breed loyalty. He freed those who had plotted against him, restored their lands, and praised them for their honesty when they confessed their schemes. Yet in their hearts they mocked him. They saw not a noble soul but a weak ruler who could be manipulated. His mercy became their opportunity. His virtue became their weapon. This is the shocking cost of goodness, that in a world of wolves the lamb is not respected for its purity, but chosen first for the slaughter. The illusion of virtue blinds men to the truth of human nature. They believe others will mirror their kindness, but they forget that most men love only when it is useful, and betray when it is convenient. The young king's subjects praised him in public, bowed before him in ceremonies, called him the merciful, but behind his back they whispered. They said, "He is too kind to punish, too gentle to rule." And so they conspired, knowing that he lacked the cruelty to make them fear him. When he sat upon his throne, surrounded by smiling faces, he did not see that every smile hid an intention. He mistook politeness for loyalty, silence for respect, and flattery for love. Yet in every court, there are those who worship power, not the person who holds it. His nobles began to test his limits. They withheld taxes, ignored his decrees, and when he forgave them they saw that his words had no weight. His goodness had stripped his authority bare. They understood that his heart ruled his hand, and that is the moment they began to rule him. The illusion of virtue, my friend, is believing that being good will make others good to you. But the world is not a mirror of your soul. It is a theater of motives. Every man plays a part, and the honest ones rarely survive past the first act. When the king's enemies returned to his court, pretending loyalty, he embraced them with open arms. He called them brothers, offered them seats beside him, and spoke of forgiveness. But forgiveness without caution is not divine. It is foolish. To forgive is noble, but to forget is fatal. And so they used his trust to learn his weaknesses, his habits, his defenses. In the quiet of night, when the king slept peacefully, dreaming of a kingdom built on compassion, those same forgiven men plotted his fall. They wrote letters to foreign powers, made pacts with his generals, and spread whispers among the people that their ruler was soft, unfit, and blind to the realities of power. And when the storm finally came, it was not from an open enemy, but from those he had pardoned. The palace gates opened not through force, but through betrayal. His guards, whom he had treated with kindness, were the first to flee. His generals, whom he had rewarded with mercy, were the first to kneel before his rivals. As fire consumed his banners, the young king realized that virtue without strategy is a throne built on sand. His mercy had not saved him, it had invited his destruction. His goodness had cost him everything, his power, his safety, his crown. But here lies the true cruelty of fate. Even as his empire collapsed, the king still believed he had done right. He whispered, "I was good to them. Why have they done this to me?" He never understood that the world does not punish evil. It punishes weakness disguised as goodness. The world, cruel as it is, does not respect the pure, it respects the strong. And those who mistake compassion for control are destined to feed those who do not. The illusion of virtue is like a golden mask, beautiful, admired, and deadly when worn too long. It blinds the wearer from seeing that beneath every handshake hides ambition, and behind every oath lies desire. To be good in such a world, one must first be wise. To be merciful, one must first be feared. For goodness, unguided by wisdom, is not a virtue. It is a luxury only the powerful can afford. The young king had not learned this truth. He believed that love was loyalty, that mercy was strength, and that kindness would build unbreakable bonds. But love fades when tested by power, mercy weakens when met with greed, and kindness dies in the hands of opportunists. His story, though centuries old, repeats itself in every era. The faces change, the thrones differ, but the illusion remains. The illusion that virtue alone can rule a world built on ambition, fear, and self-interest. There was once a merchant, known across the city for his honesty. His word was as sacred as scripture, his contracts written in truth rather than trickery. He believed, as all noble men do, that integrity was the key to lasting success, that goodness, once known, would guard him against the venom of deceit. He said, "I would rather lose gold than lose my honor." And so he became the perfect prey in a marketplace built not on morality but manipulation. This is where we witness the predator's advantage. The truth that those who understand the use of morality, rather than its burden, command the world. You see, the merchant's rivals studied him as hunters study the gentle deer. They saw his virtue not as strength, but as a pattern, a predictable rhythm that could be exploited. They knew he would never lie, never cheat, never suspect treachery, and so they learned to smile as they sharpened their knives. They praised him in public, calling him the soul of commerce. They bowed to him in the marketplace, calling him a man of unmatched virtue. But behind those courtesies, they plotted. One man bribed his ship captain to delay his cargo. Another forged documents to undercut his trade. And when rumors spread of corruption, they pointed to him, the honest one, and said, "Surely, the man who claims purity hides the darkest sin." For in a world of predators, innocence itself becomes suspicious. Yet, the merchant refused to see it. He believed truth was a shield. He believed that by living rightly, he would inspire others to do the same. But those who seek power are not inspired by virtue, they are informed by it. They study it to know where to strike. His transparency made him visible, his humility made him harmless, and his honor made him predictable. As months passed, the merchant's ships began to vanish at sea. His partners withdrew investments, and his loyal workers were bought by richer men. Still, he said, "I will not descend to their level. I will keep my integrity." He could not see that integrity, when it blinds you to the cruelty of men, is not nobility. It is a form of surrender. The predators do not play by the same laws as their prey. They write the rules as they devour. And while he drowned in fairness, they swam in strategy. The cunning understood that morality is not to be worn, but to be wielded. They used virtue as a mask, deception as their tool, and public goodness as their disguise. One of his competitors began to donate to the poor. Another funded churches. Another sponsored poets to write of his honorable nature. They weaponized virtue, and the people, blind to motives, celebrated them. The merchant who lived true goodness quietly was forgotten in their noise. This, my listener, is the predator's advantage. Those who understand morality as a tool can use it to enslave those who treat it as a law. The world, cruel and clever, rewards not those who are good, but those who appear to be. The merchant could not comprehend this paradox. He believed appearances mattered less than reality. But in the theater of power, appearance is everything. The one who controls perception controls the truth itself. And so when the Council of Merchants met to judge the accusations against him, they saw a man stripped of allies, poor in influence, yet rich in sincerity. His rivals stood beside him, draped in false virtue, their words dripping with feigned sympathy. They said, "We admire his goodness, but the market has no place for one so pure." And the people agreed. His honesty, they said, made him naive. His fairness, they claimed, slowed progress. His refusal to adapt, they called pride. The merchant, who had spent his life building trust, found himself isolated, not because he lacked goodness, but because he trusted that goodness alone could survive among predators. His store closed, his apprentices abandoned him, and those who once praised his virtue now whispered that perhaps he was too weak to compete. This is the moment he finally understood that the world does not measure goodness by the heart, but by the hand that holds power. He walked through the streets once filled with his reputation, and saw his former rivals' banners everywhere, their faces on coins, their names praised in sermons. He had lost not because he was wrong, but because he was honest in a dishonest world. The predator's advantage lies not in cruelty, but in understanding that morality itself can be bent, shaped and sold, like any other commodity. The cunning do not destroy virtue, they wear it, just long enough to win. The merchant sat in the ruins of his empire and thought of the countless men before him, who had believed the same lie, that goodness is its own reward. But goodness without power is a whisper in a hurricane. The men who ruled his city did not fear punishment, for they had learned to disguise their greed behind charity, and their ambition behind humility. They spoke the language of virtue fluently, not because they believed it, but because it disarmed those who did. And so, the merchant's downfall was not written by evil men, but by intelligent ones. Those who understood the nature of power, that the purest light, when held in the wrong hands, blinds rather than guides. They understood that to rule the world, one must not destroy goodness, but manipulate it. The merchant had been moral, yes, but morality without awareness becomes slavery. He lived by principles, while others lived by results. He clung to ideals, while others adapted to the game. He held to truth, even as truth was rewritten before his eyes. And when he finally looked into the mirror, he saw not a hero, but a man who had paid the price for believing the illusion that the world rewards the pure. The predators had won, not by strength, but by strategy. The merchant's ruin was not his failure to be good, but his refusal to be wise in how he used his goodness. And as I have written before, it is not evil that conquers virtue. It is intelligence that understands how to weaponize it. There is a cruel arithmetic that rules the world, an unseen equation written not in ink or logic, but in human desire. It is a formula older than morality itself. It says that power multiplies through deception, that truth divides in the face of ambition, and that goodness, when placed in the wrong sum, cancels itself out. The merchant learned this truth too late, and so did every soul who believed that honesty could balance the scale of corruption. You see, the world does not reward goodness for its own sake. It rewards only what goodness can produce. Virtue, stripped of influence, is just an ornament hung around the neck of the powerless. Look around, and you will see this cruel equation at work. The powerful are not always the wisest, but they are often the most strategic. They understand that appearances matter more than actions, that justice can be molded by narrative, and that morality itself is a stage performance for those who cannot afford the ticket to the truth. A ruler claims piety to gain trust. A priest uses guilt to hold devotion. A merchant donates to charity to secure admiration. It is not goodness they seek, but control through the illusion of it. And yet, the honest still believe. They live in a world governed by predators, but expect fairness from wolves. They think truth will defend them in courts built by liars. They think sincerity will protect them from manipulation. But the world's cruel equation does not care for fairness. It calculates in influence. The good man says, I will do what is right. The wise man says, I will do what is necessary. And therein lies the difference between those who fall and those who rise. In every age, there have been people who fought to make the world moral. They wrote laws, built temples, preached honesty, and taught compassion. Yet behind every moral structure, there was always one truth. Morality survives only under the protection of power. Without power, even the purest virtue decays into weakness. And this is what men refuse to accept, that the same world that praises saints crucifies them, and the same masses that follow heroes are the first to turn against them. The world's cruel equation ensures that every act of goodness is measured, not by its purity, but by its effect. Help a beggar, and the world sees a fool. Help a rival, and the world sees weakness. Forgive an enemy, and the world prepares your coffin. But deceive with grace, and they call you wise. Manipulate with charm, and they call you a leader. Conquer with a smile, and they call you divine. There is no justice in perception. There is only power in presentation. I once observed a ruler who ruled through fear, yet he was loved. He understood the arithmetic perfectly. He gave gifts with one hand, and took freedom with the other. His people believed he was kind because he knew how to appear kind. He punished brutally, but quietly. He rewarded sparingly, but publicly. The people did not see a tyrant, they saw a protector. He had mastered the equation. He knew that men do not love the good, they love the strong who seem good. The tragedy of mankind is not that people are wicked, it is that people are shallow. They judge the mask, not the face behind it. They worship symbols, not substance. They praise virtue when it wins and scorn it when it falls. The merchant who lived by honesty died forgotten, while his rival, cloaked in deceit, was remembered as honorable. Such is the mathematics of power. Perception squared by manipulation equals authority. Truth divided by naivety equals ruin. The world's cruel equation operates silently in every conversation, every alliance, every act of charity. When a man does good, the wise ask why. When a man refuses to deceive, the powerful test his limits. For purity without purpose is a language few understand. Even religion, that ancient shield of morality, bends beneath this law. Holy men build empires in the name of humility. The pious collect gold in the name of poverty. And those who truly seek goodness find themselves buried beneath the noise of those who pretend it better. Yet what makes this equation truly merciless is its indifference. It does not care whether you are virtuous or corrupt. It only calculates the outcome. If deceit wins, deceit becomes virtue. If honesty loses, honesty becomes folly. The world does not ask who was right, it asks who survived. And survival, not sanctity, defines righteousness in the eyes of history. The greatest empires were not built by saints, but by sinners who understood how to sanctify their sins. Men speak of justice, but justice itself is an invention of the strong to give their power the scent of morality. The weak cling to fairness as if it were a weapon, not realizing it is a script written by those who already hold the sword. The world's cruel equation is elegant in its simplicity. Those who understand human nature shape it. Those who ignore it are shaped by it. Goodness is noble. Yes, but nobility without cunning is a crown of glass. It shines, but it breaks easily. And so every man must ask himself, not am I good, but am I effective? For the world does not operate on the currency of virtue, but on the currency of results. A good deed that weakens you is not goodness. It is sacrifice to a system that does not remember its saints. The world is not kind, nor is it cruel. It is transactional. It rewards what works and erases what doesn't. And until one learns to navigate this arithmetic, goodness remains a cost few can afford to pay twice. There is no illusion more powerful, nor more dangerous, than the illusion of virtue. It is the mask that rules kings, blinds saints, and deceives the very people who worship it. The deception of virtue is not merely in appearing good. It is in believing that appearing good is the same as being wise. The cunning understand that virtue is a currency that buys trust, loyalty, and admiration. The foolish believe that virtue alone is enough to secure these things, and in that belief lies their undoing. The world, my listener, does not value virtue for its purity. It values virtue for its usefulness. Those who understand this truth rise. Those who don't, fall. You see, virtue is like gold. It is precious, yes, but only when molded into something of purpose. Left untouched, it simply glitters. Wielded correctly, it governs empires. The deception of virtue is that men think it is an absolute good, when in truth, it is only a tool. The wise use it to build power. The naive use it to prove their worth. The first become leaders. The second become sacrifices. I once observed a ruler who played this deception flawlessly. He understood that men needed to believe in goodness, even when none existed. He spoke gently, promised mercy, and dressed his cruelty in compassion. When he executed his enemies, he called it purification. When he raised taxes, he called it sacrifice for the greater good. And when he silenced dissent, he called it peace. His people worshipped him because he gave them the illusion that their suffering was moral. He understood the secret that the pure never learn, that men do not love virtue, they love the feeling of being ruled by it. This ruler, unlike the naive king, never believed in his own virtue. He wore it as a costume, removing it when the night demanded strategy. The deception of virtue lies not in lying to others, but in never lying to yourself. He knew he was ruthless. He knew he was calculating, but he also knew that goodness as a performance held more power than goodness as a reality. His enemies underestimated him because he looked pure. His allies followed him because he seemed divine. He mastered the art of appearing merciful, while never allowing mercy to guide him. That, my listener, is the true deception of virtue, to act the saint, but think like the serpent. And yet those who live by honest virtue despise this truth. They call it hypocrisy. They call it corruption. But tell me, what is hypocrisy, except intelligence in disguise? To deceive others through goodness is not wicked. It is wise. For men obey appearances far more than truths. A ruler who appears virtuous, even when he is not, commands more loyalty than one who truly is. This is because people seek comfort in symbols, not substance. They do not want truth. They want the illusion of it. They do not want justice. They want the feeling that justice exists. The deception of virtue is woven into every corner of civilization. Priests wear it to control conscience. Rulers use it to maintain order. And lovers use it to conceal desire. It is the language of trust spoken by those who understand that morality, when performed beautifully, is more persuasive than morality practiced sincerely. The powerful know that a well-timed act of charity can erase a lifetime of deceit. A single tear shed in public can sanctify the cruelest intentions. And when the masses witness this theater, they applaud, not realizing they are the audience to their own manipulation. To the wise, this is not wickedness. It is necessity. Power survives through perception. The deception of virtue is what keeps chaos contained. Imagine for a moment a world where every man spoke his true mind, acted on every impulse, and showed no restraint. It would not be paradise. It would be ruin. Thus virtue must exist, not as truth, but as an illusion that disciplines humanity. The greatest minds have always known this. They used virtue to lead, not to limit themselves. The fool believes goodness is its own armor. The strategist knows goodness is the sword itself. And yet, the most dangerous deception of all is self-deception. When a man convinces himself that his goodness is beyond question, he becomes blind to his own flaws, deaf to warning, and incapable of seeing how his righteousness becomes tyranny. History is filled with such men, prophets who burned the innocent in the name of purity, leaders who destroyed nations in the name of justice, lovers who ruined lives in the name of loyalty. They never believed themselves evil, because they were enslaved by the illusion that their virtue was infallible. That is the final stage of the deception, when goodness becomes God, and the man who serves it becomes its weapon. The deception of virtue does not destroy only those who fake it. It destroys those who worship it too deeply. The crowd loves to crown the virtuous today and crucify them tomorrow. The same hands that lift you in praise will pull you down in judgment. For the masses do not love virtue itself. They love the spectacle of it. They cheer for purity only until it threatens their comfort. Then they demand its head. That is why the wise man never serves virtue blindly. He uses it, shapes it, and when the time comes, he sets it aside without guilt. Virtue is not the light that saves men. It is the torch by which they deceive others into following them. It burns brightly, but only those who know how to control its flame survive its heat. The world bows before those who master the performance of goodness, not those who simply possess it. A man who truly understands this never wastes his morality. He invests it. He held when to display it, when to conceal it, and when to twist it into power. For in the deception of virtue lies not corruption, but control. And in control lies the only form of morality that endures beyond the illusions of men. Compassion is the most beautiful lie mankind has ever told itself. It shines like gold in the eyes of the virtuous, and yet it corrodes the moment it touches the machinery of power. I have watched kingdoms fall not to swords or storms, but to sympathy. I have seen rulers forgive those who plotted their downfall, lovers protect those who would betray them, and wise men surrender their advantage to spare the feelings of fools. And every time, the world applauded their kindness, right before it devoured them. Such is the price of compassion, that it demands payment in the form of your strength. Compassion, when measured, is wisdom, but when poured without limit, it is poison. The heart that cannot say no becomes a servant to everyone who knows how to ask. The ruler who cannot bear to punish will soon have nothing left to rule, and the man who forgives endlessly will one day kneel before those who no longer fear him. The world calls compassion divine, but divinity is not free. It requires the sacrifice of authority, the surrender of protection, the weakening of resolve. You may be loved for your mercy, but you will be destroyed by it just the same. I once knew a general fierce in battle, noble in command, who lost everything not to his enemies but to his own pity. He conquered cities, silenced rebellions, and inspired loyalty among soldiers. But when his enemies surrendered, he offered them clemency. He spared their families, restored their lands, and swore to trust their word. They thanked him with tears and promises of loyalty. Yet the moment his army turned its back, those same men reignited rebellion, stronger and more merciless than before. His kindness had not converted them, it had comforted them long enough to reload their daggers. The price of compassion is not always paid in betrayal. Sometimes it is paid in exhaustion. The man who gives endlessly, who absorbs every sorrow, becomes hollow. His compassion eats away at his identity until he no longer knows where others end and he begins. I have seen good men drown not in rivers or wars, but in the flood of their own empathy. They believe that by feeling for everyone, they are healing the world. But compassion without distance is self-destruction disguised as virtue. To feel everything is to lose control of oneself. The deception of virtue, which we have already seen, is dangerous enough, but compassion, when corrupted by excess, is its cruelest manifestation. It turns a ruler into a servant, a leader into a victim, and a visionary into a martyr. There are those who believe compassion is strength, and they are half right. Compassion is strength only when controlled by reason. When guided by emotion alone, it becomes the softest form of suicide. The world does not forgive those who give too much. It bleeds them dry, praises their sacrifice, and then forgets them the moment they fall. You see, compassion is not meant to be constant. It is meant to be chosen. The wise man knows when to extend his hand and when to let the other fall. He knows that mercy without judgment breeds chaos. Imagine a world where no crime is punished, no deceit exposed, no betrayal met with consequence. That world would not be merciful, it would be monstrous. True compassion, my listener, demands discrimination. It must be given to those who can grow from it, not those who will weaponize it. But the good often refuse to make that distinction. They believe every soul deserves saving, every sin deserves forgiveness, every plea deserves response. They confuse compassion with obligation, and so they carry the weight of others' failures until their own spine breaks beneath it. The world, ungrateful and unfeeling, continues without them. Compassion becomes the noose by which they hang themselves, not out of malice, but out of misplaced faith in humanity. Even among rulers, compassion is the most seductive trap. A king who cannot watch his people suffer will soon become their slave. His court will exploit his heart as much as his treasury. The flatterers will cloak deceit in sub-stories. The greedy will disguise ambition as need, and the envious will present treachery as tears. He will give, forgive, and give again, until all that remains of him is a throne surrounded by smiling thieves. The people will call him kind, yes, but they will not call him king for long. The price of compassion is often paid in silence. The world mourns you briefly, then moves on. Those who benefited from your goodness rarely repay it. Gratitude fades faster than guilt. The compassionate are remembered not for their wisdom but for their wound. And yet, strangely, humanity cannot live without them. Compassion sustains the illusion that the world still has a heart. It gives meaning to suffering, even as it multiplies it. That is why, even as it destroys, it remains revered. The wise learn to master their compassion, the way a soldier masters his sword. It is not drawn for every conflict. It is reserved for those that matter. To wield compassion properly is to know when it becomes weakness. It is not cruelty to withhold it. It is strategy, for every act of compassion carries a cost, and one must decide carefully who is worth paying for. The world may call this coldness, but it is the highest form of control. To feel deeply, yet act selectively, that is the mark of true power. And those who do not learn this law will pay the same price as the general, as the king, as the countless souls who mistook their heart for their crown. Compassion is not meant to rule, it is meant to serve wisdom. For when compassion rules, it blinds. And when it blinds, it betrays. The heart must feel, yes, but the mind must decide. Those who reverse this order will always discover too late that in the game of survival, the kind are loved, but the ruthless endure. Power, my listener, is not a reward for virtue. It is a test of understanding. It does not belong to the pure, nor to the wicked alone, but to those who grasp its nature without illusion. To rule, to lead, to survive, one must see the world, not as it should be, but as it truly is. This is the lesson of power, and it is a lesson written in the suffering of those who confused goodness with safety. Many believe that power corrupts, but that is only half the truth. Power does not corrupt, it reveals. It strips away the masks of morality and exposes what lies beneath. The kind discover how quickly their mercy turns to weakness. The cruel find how easily their cruelty consumes them. Power does not invent our nature, it amplifies it. It is a mirror, not a monster, and those who fear to look into it are the ones most controlled by it. I have observed rulers who began their reigns with noble intentions. They promised justice, fairness, peace, words gilded with compassion, adored by the masses. But power demands sacrifice, and the world is not built on ideals. It is built on necessity. When their compassion met the chaos of reality, these rulers hesitated. They questioned their own strength. They believed that by staying pure, they could stay safe. But power does not protect innocence. It devours it. In their hesitation, the cunning rose. In their mercy, the ambitious plotted. And in their goodness, their empires crumbled. The lesson of power is this: virtue without strategy is a liability. A man may wish to do good, but he must first learn how to survive doing it. What use is kindness if it cannot last? What worth is truth if it cannot command obedience? Power is not the enemy of goodness. It is the guardian that allows it to exist. Without strength, goodness is just a dream in a violent world. And dreams, when left undefended, are devoured by those who do not dream at all. Consider the lion and the fox, those timeless symbols of rule. The lion stands for strength, the fox for cunning. One without the other is doomed. The lion without cunning is trapped by its own pride. The fox without strength is devoured by its own schemes. Together they rule the forest, not by kindness, but by balance. This is what the good must learn: to wield compassion without surrendering control, to be merciful without being predictable, to protect without being prey. I have seen men who believed power was maintained through honesty alone. They spoke truth, even when deception would have saved them. They revealed plans to those who wore masks of friendship, mistaking flattery for loyalty. Their downfall was not caused by evil, but by naivety. Power, like art, requires restraint. Not every truth deserves to be spoken. Not every enemy deserves to know your heart. The wise ruler speaks with warmth, but calculates in silence. In power, perception is more valuable than reality. What people believe you to be matters more than what you truly are. Appear just, even when you must be harsh. Appear merciful, even when you must be decisive. The world does not reward the honest man. It rewards the one who appears honest while mastering deception. This is not hypocrisy, it is strategy. For power, stripped of illusion, is a performance, one that only the discerning survive. The lesson of power also teaches that isolation is fatal. The good often retreat from the world, hoping their purity will shield them from corruption. But power lives among people, not apart from them. To isolate oneself is to surrender the field to the ambitious. A ruler who hides behind moral distance is like a priest preaching to an empty temple, noble, perhaps, but irrelevant. Influence requires proximity, not purity. To guide the crowd, you must walk among them. To command loyalty, you must understand desire. And to maintain power, you must feed the illusions that sustain it. There is another truth most cannot bear. Power is not taken, it is given. The people give it through trust, fear, admiration, or dependence. But once they give it, they expect to be led. The ruler who seeks to please everyone ends up pleasing no one. The leader who hesitates to act for fear of judgment becomes the enemy of both action and respect. The world may hate the strong, but it always follows them. Weakness invites pity, and pity is not loyalty. Those who crave to be loved above all else will one day be ruled by those who do not care to be loved at all. The lesson of power demands a cruel honesty. You cannot lead if you cannot command, and you cannot command if you cannot control yourself. The greatest power lies not in armies, nor in wealth, but in the discipline of one's own mind. He who cannot master his desires will be mastered by them. He who cannot restrain his compassion will be undone by it, and he who cannot silence his fears will become a puppet of those who can. To be powerful, one must understand when to act and when to appear, when to forgive and when to feign forgiveness, when to be human and when to be symbol. It is not deception. It is the art of survival. Those who cling to purity in a world of shadows will always be consumed by the very darkness they refuse to see. Power does not demand cruelty. It demands clarity. And clarity, and clarity, when stripped of illusion, is what separates the rulers from the ruled. The lesson of power is not about domination. It is about endurance, to remain standing when others fall, to hold one's throne not through love or fear alone, but through understanding both. Those who know this truth live long enough to shape history. Those who do not become its forgotten footnotes. Power, like fire, warms the wise and burns the careless. The world will always test you, not for your goodness, but for your strength to protect it. Goodness is power, only when guided by reason. The fool gives it freely. The wise give it strategically.